Hey everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive.
Always fun to dig into these fascinating topics.
That's right.
Yeah.
And this time we're looking at the idea of wealth, and how it kind of interacts with spirituality.
Right.
And to help us with that, we're going to be using the story of the rich young man
Okay.
from the Gospel of Matthew chapter 19. But we're not going to stop there.
Right.
We also have some commentary that kind of goes into the psychology of it all.
Interesting.
And even how this question or this tension is kind of playing out in our modern world today.
I'm intrigued.
Yeah. So have you ever wondered,
Yeah.
what it really means to, truly follow a spiritual path?
Yeah.
Is it just about following all the rules,
Yeah.
or is there something more to it?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's kind of what we're going to be looking at today.
I like it.
So to kind of kick things off,
Yeah.
I think it'd be helpful to just give a really quick recap of the story.
Okay. Yeah.
So for anyone who needs a refresher, in Matthew 19, we meet this guy who seems to have it all.
Hello.
He's young, he's rich,
Uh-huh.
and he goes up to Jesus and he's like,
Yep.
what must I do to inherit eternal life?
He's bold.
He is.
Yeah.
And he seems like a pretty good guy. He even says that he's followed all the commandments since he was a kid.
Right. Well, that's what's so fascinating about this story is how it really highlights this tension I think we still grapple with today.
Yeah.
This pull between material security and something more
Yeah.
maybe what some might call spiritual fulfillment.
Right. And it's interesting because even though he's done all the right things,
Yeah.
Jesus's response, really challenges him
Uh-huh.
to think about, what he values the most. So it's not just about, the outward actions.
Right.
But it's this inner transformation.
Absolutely. It's not about checking boxes, you
Yeah.
know, it's about something deeper. And that's where I think the psychology of wealth really comes in.
Okay.
You see, back then, wealth wasn't just about money. It was deeply tied to social status and even your perceived righteousness.
Oh.
So think about it. If you were blessed with wealth,
Yeah.
it was seen as a sign of God's favor.
I see. So it's almost like part of your identity.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So when this young man approaches Jesus, he's already coming from this place of feeling good, and worthy because
Yep.
of his wealth.
Yeah.
And so this is why I think Jesus's next move is so radical.
Okay.
He basically tells the guy, if you want to be perfect,
Yeah.
go sell all your stuff.
Oh, wow.
Give it to the poor and you'll have treasure in heaven.
Huge ask.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then come follow me. Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Just someone saying that to you today?
Right. Give up everything you've worked for.
Your house, your car, everything.
Yeah. And that's kind of where the commentary, I think, is helpful.
Okay.
Because it points out that this wasn't a universal command.
Right.
For every single person to just suddenly become poor. It was really this personalized challenge,
Right.
Almost targeted at this man's specific attachment
Yeah.
to his wealth.
It's about recognizing where our own attachments lie. What are the things that we cling to, maybe
Yeah.
even define ourselves by,
Yeah.
that might be preventing us from fully embracing,
Yeah.
a more fulfilling life.
So it's we each have our own camel and needle moment.
Totally.
What are those things
Mhm.
that feel almost impossible to let go of?
Yeah.
Even if we know they might be holding us back.
100%.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going to be getting into.
I'm excited to dig into that.
Yeah, me too. It's interesting how the commentary connects this ancient story, to our modern obsession with having it all.
Oh, yes.
Careers, social media status, the perfect house.
Uh-huh.
These things can become our modern day riches
Oh, I see.
that are just as hard to let go of
Yeah.
as gold and silver were back then.
Right. And it's we're constantly being told, we need more to be happy. But,
Right.
is that really true?
Well, that's a good question.
What's the commentary say about that?
Well, it actually brings up some fascinating research on happiness and materialism.
Okay.
Studies show that while getting a raise or buying a new gadget might give us a temporary boost,
Yeah.
lasting happiness isn't really tied to
Right.
how much stuff we have.
Okay. So it's chasing after those things might actually be taking us
Yeah.
further away from what would truly make us happy.
Exactly. And this is where I think Jesus' teaching about the reversal of values comes in.
Okay.
He says, but many who are first will be last, and many who are last will be first.
Wow.
He's turning our whole idea of success upside down.
Okay. Unpack that for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
What does this reversal of values actually look like?
Well, I think it's about shifting our focus from worldly achievements to things like humility, generosity, values that often get pushed aside, in our pursuit of status and wealth.
I'm starting to see how this connects back to the story of the rich young man.
Totally.
He was so focused on what he had
Right.
that he missed out on what truly mattered.
And it's a trap that's easy to fall into.
Oh, yeah.
Even if we're not millionaires, it's about recognizing that like our worth isn't tied to our job title
Right.
or how many likes we get on Instagram.
Yeah, totally.
True fulfillment, I think, often comes from contributing to something larger than ourselves.
That's a powerful thought.
It is.
But I have to admit, it can feel a little daunting
Yeah.
to think about like completely upending
Yeah.
my values.
It's a lot.
Is this really about like giving up everything?
I don't think it's necessarily about giving up everything,
Right.
but more about reevaluating what we're chasing after. It's about asking ourselves, are we climbing the ladder of success?
Yeah.
Only to find out it's leaning against the wrong wall.
I love that analogy. So true.
It's easy to get caught up in achieving things without stopping to ask if they truly matter,
Totally.
in the grand scheme of things.
And this is where the commentary points out something really encouraging.
Okay. Remember the disciples?
Yeah.
They were a bit confused too.
Right.
Peter even asks Jesus, what's in it for us?
Yeah.
We've left everything to follow you.
Right.
And Jesus reassures them that their sacrifice won't be in vain. He promises them like a 100-fold return.
Wow.
And eternal life.
Okay, so there is like a trade-off, but it's not like a losing proposition.
Not at all. In fact, many people find that
Okay.
when they start living by these kind of reversed values, they actually experience a much richer and more fulfilling life,
Okay.
even if it doesn't look like conventional success.
It's almost like letting go of our attachment
Right.
to those external markers opens us up to a whole new world of possibilities.
Exactly. And that brings us back to the concept of eternal life,
Okay.
which can sound pretty abstract.
Yeah, this kind of a hard concept to grasp.
Right. But the commentary dives into what that might actually mean,
Okay.
both in this life and beyond.
I'm all ears.
Yeah.
That's something I've always wondered about.
Right.
What does it actually mean to inherit eternal life?
Well, it's a big question.
It is.
That's been debated for centuries.
Yeah.
But I think one way to understand it
Okay.
is that it's less about going to like a specific place
Right.
after we die
Uh-huh.
and more about like experiencing a certain state of being,
Okay.
a kind of connection to something larger than ourselves
Yeah.
that brings like a deep and lasting sense of peace and purpose.
So it's less about pearly gates
Yeah.
and more about an internal transformation.
Exactly. And the commentary suggests that this transformation often involves like cultivating qualities like love, compassion, forgiveness, gratitude. It's a sense of purpose, things that bring true and lasting fulfillment,
Yeah.
both in this life and beyond. And you know what's fascinating?
What's that?
These qualities aren't tied to any specific religion.
Interesting.
They're universal principles that can enrich anyone's life.
So it's like we have the potential to experience a taste of eternal life
Totally.
right here, right now, by cultivating those qualities
Yeah.
within ourselves.
That's a beautiful way to put it.
Thank you.
And the more we embody these principles,
Yeah.
the more we connect with that deeper sense of purpose and meaning
Right.
that transcends the ups and downs of our earthly existence.
I'm starting to see how all of this ties together.
Me too.
The story of the rich young man, the reversal of values,
Yeah.
the concept of eternal life.
Right.
It's all pointing toward a
Yes.
different way of being in the world.
100%.
One that prioritizes
Yeah.
what truly matters.
You've got it. And this brings us to what might be like the most important part of this whole deep dive.
Right.
How do we actually live this out
Yeah, how do we actually do it?
in our own lives?
Okay, so we've explored this idea that eternal life is like, less about a destination
Right.
and more about like a way of being, cultivating those qualities
Yeah.
of love, of compassion, purpose.
Right.
But how do we actually do that?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is like, it sounds great in theory, but
Yeah.
how do we make it a reality in our, busy, often chaotic lives?
Well, the commentary doesn't offer a simple, step-by-step guide.
Okay.
It's more about like a shift in perspective, a reorientation of our priorities.
So it's less about checking things off a to-do list
Right.
and more about this ongoing process of inner transformation.
Exactly. And the commentary uses this really helpful analogy of a garden.
Okay.
Like, if we want to grow beautiful flowers, we need to tend to the soil,
Okay.
plant the seeds,
Right.
water them regularly, and pull out the weeds.
I like that. So if we think of eternal life as like those beautiful flowers,
Right.
what are the seeds that we need to plant in our lives?
Well, it goes back to those qualities we were talking about: love, compassion, generosity, forgiveness, a sense of purpose.
Right.
These are the seeds that, when nurtured, can blossom into a truly fulfilling life.
But what about the weeds?
The
What are those things that might be choking out the seeds and
Yeah.
preventing them from growing?
That's where we need to get honest with ourselves.
Okay.
What are those camels and needles in our lives?
Right.
Is it the constant need for approval,
Yeah.
the fear of not having enough, the obsession with status or material possessions?
Yeah.
These are the weeds that can easily take over if we're not careful.
So part of this process is about like becoming aware of those things that are holding us back, those
Yeah.
patterns of thinking and behaving
Right.
that might be preventing us from like really living
Yes.
in alignment with our deepest values.
Right. Absolutely. It's about cultivating self-awareness.
Okay.
Noticing those moments when we're tempted to prioritize the weeds over the seeds,
Right.
and making a conscious choice to turn toward what truly matters.
That makes a lot of sense, but it also sounds like a lifelong process.
It is.
It's not like a one-time fix.
Not at all. And the commentary emphasizes that it's not about being perfect.
Okay.
It's about progress, about taking small steps each day to cultivate those qualities within ourselves.
I'm thinking back to the story of the rich young man.
Yeah,
He was so attached to his wealth
right.
that he couldn't let go.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think he ever managed to shift his perspective?
I don't know.
Like, do you think he ever found
Yeah,
that eternal life that Jesus was talking about?
we don't know for sure. The story ends with him walking away, sadly.
Yeah.
But, the commentary reminds us that it's never too late to change.
Yeah.
Even if we spent years tending to the weeds,
Yeah.
we can always choose to start planting new seeds.
That's actually really encouraging. So for anyone listening who's feeling overwhelmed, like, it's impossible to make those changes.
Yeah.
It's about taking it one step at a time,
Totally.
one seed at a time.
Exactly. It might be starting each day with a moment of gratitude,
Okay.
practicing forgiveness in a challenging relationship,
Yeah.
or finding small ways to give back to your community.
Right.
These are all ways of planting those seeds and nurturing them so they can grow.
This deep dive has been a powerful reminder that true wealth
Yeah.
isn't about what we have in the bank, but it's about the qualities that we cultivate
Right.
within ourselves.
Yes.
And the impact that we have
Totally.
on the world around us.
Totally said. And it's a reminder that eternal life isn't some far-off reward,
Right.
but something we can experience right here, right now,
Yeah.
by aligning our lives with those deeper values.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave our listeners with a question to ponder. What are those seeds you want to nurture in your own life?
Yeah,
What small steps can you take today
right.
to cultivate those qualities of love, compassion, purpose, and connection?
And remember, it's a journey, not a destination.
Yeah.
There will be times when the weeds seem to be taking over.
Right.
But don't give up.
Yeah.
Keep tending to those seeds.
Okay.
And you might be surprised by the beauty that blooms in your life.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll see you next time for another thought-provoking exploration.